I can't disagree with Ken. I wish I could, but unfortunately I can't. Also, I heard my fellow two speakers say, God, please, I'm not following him. And unfortunately, I can't bake a cake, but I do know a little bit about dough. So this is the Canterbury Water Management Strategy, the Selwyn story. So thank you, Peter, for your kind introduction. I acknowledge my fellow speakers tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, the question posed where we got to is, Canterbury Water, are we doing enough? I think before answering, we need to actually look at where we've come from, because that's terribly important to see where we've got to. So let us go back a few years to mid-2005, 2010, an era of conflict on all levels. Farmers, I better get this right actually, farmers and ECAN, lawyers and lawyers, experts with experts, that's how we fought it, councillor on councillor. ECAN had decided to review all consents between the Rakaia and the Selwyn rivers, intending to eventually review all consents in Canterbury. This process never proceeded because they found an exceptionally difficult resistance in Selwyn, Rakaia Selwyn. And to be honest, I was at the front of that resistance throwing rocks, so I may be the poacher turned gamekeeper, I'm not too sure about that. But with an ever increasing demand for water in the region, the pressure was on everybody. There's a need to address water and particularly irrigation demand, as realisation that the process was out of balance. The Canterbury Mayoral Forum, made up of mayors of the districts, Christchurch City Council and Canterbury Regional Council, developed the CWMS with aims of maximising the benefit derived from Canterbury's water resource. I'd just like to point out that Mayor Kelvin Coe there with his head in his hands, so that's how serious it was at the time. The goal to provide a collaborative framework to address the issues so as to, I quote, enable present and future generations to gain the greatest social, economic, recreational and cultural benefit from Canterbury's water resource with an environmentally sustainable framework. This was and is still a huge task. This duty was to be fulfilled by 10 appointed zone committees and a regional committee. Not long after this, Environment Canterbury and Te Runanga o Ngātahu signed a co-governance agreement and, among other things, have joint control over Whakahora Te Waihora. This, along with Ngātahu's involvement in all zone committees, has helped develop a much greater cultural understanding and feeling of kaitiakitanga within discussions around our environment. Coming back to this Canterbury Water Management Strategy, it was adopted by ECAN in 2010, and zone committees began to be set up from then on. Irrigation being the first, Selwyn-Waihora followed, but was the first to follow the process from the beginning, as Irrigation was already into the planning process, I believe. The way forward for the Canterbury Water Management Strategy was to engage the community. At first not easy, but very engaged now. Ken mentioned this is not a short-term project, this is 25, 30 years, 35 years. It's more than one generation. And I think that's the important part about the whole strategy. It's about developing tools and capability, human resources, the ability of people to actually follow these things through. Also refreshing the policy and planning framework to reflect collaboration. It doesn't reflect collaboration, we know that, and this process has actually been going through. I still have a concern with the RMA and how it relates to sub-regional chapters and collaboration. I'm not sure that you can actually ever fix that problem because I'm not a planner. And I thank God for that some days, to be quite honest. We got commitment from the agricultural industry. There's joint work programs of Dairy NZ, Beef and Lamb, Hort New Zealand, New Zealand Pork and others. I saw a small article in the farming paper the other day from Pork New Zealand saying, we're putting money up, we want to know what we're emitting, we're developing overseer programs to actually assess that. And I thought, what a fantastic thing. You wouldn't have thought of that 3 years ago. So such a small niche area is actually looking to what they do. Setting up farm environmental programs has been a big part of the Canterbury Water Management Strategy, and auditing them across 13 irrigation schemes, 210 properties, 2,100 properties. Biodiversity, immediate steps programs, 129 of them underway, $3.5 million invested since 2010. Nearly 200 projects funded through the Canterbury Biodiversity Strategy. This is all good stuff. but it takes time, a long, long time. Now, I know Claire's going to talk about the zone committee process, and Ken's mentioned the zone committee process too, but I need to talk a little bit about Selwyn-Waihora, because from a local government perspective at Selwyn District Council, the zone committee is an important part of our area. So, having chosen not to put myself forward for our local Selwyn-Waihora zone committee, as my involvement in the water in my own area had been quite large, and quite like a lot of people involved in the water debate and the review in Rakaia Selwyn, I was a bit burnt out and over the conflict. To be honest, it was quite a draining experience, and I know that Environment Canterbury felt the same. I chose to stand for Selwyn District Council instead, only to find when I was elected that my first job was to go to a zone committee meeting as the council representative. So sitting in the meeting room for the first time, and observing my fellow committee members, I could not help but doubt where this might lead. With 6 Runanga reps, we had Terriana Smith and Charles Crofts, Claire Williams, George Tikau, Robin Wybrow, and Tavi Phillips. And on the other side, and this is the way it remained for a long time, on the other side of the room, we had Doug Catherwood, the Vice Chairman of CPW. We had John Sunkel, a dairy farmer from out in Knowlesmere. We had for a while Eugenie Sage, an ex-ECAN councillor and now Green MP, and she was replaced by Marie Goldring from Castle Hill. We had David Painter, who's well known as a water engineer and involved in Te Waihora and those things. We had agricultural consultant Sue Cumberworth, recreational representative Peter Jackson, along with Commissioner Donald Couch, Stuart Miller and myself from the councils. And, you know, collaboration looked a long way off. In fact, I doubted how long I would be there. But after a bit of sounding out and some full frank exchange and views over the months, and to the credit of these individuals during that period, there was an understanding built of each other's perspectives and opinions. We established common ground and developed an appreciation of what was important to our zone. And that was the important bit. It was our zone. No one else's, and that's the one thing we all had in common, the bonding. We also discovered we wanted to get to the same destination. We just had slightly different roadmaps on the way. Out of this came a zone implementation plan. This was and is an aspirational document that outlined our collective vision for our zone, Selwyn-Waihora. This was based on Ki Uta Katai, mountains to the sea, or in our case, Te Waihora, and then the sea. An integrated whole of waterway approach. Clearly, when dealing with water, you cannot separate out other environmental effects. They're associated with water use and intensification. Nutrients and water management were clearly going to be a huge challenge for us. We had Te Waihora at the bottom, and we were really, really a disparate bunch when we got together. But sharing information and research is critical for people to have the access to the same information, the same research, so that they understand the issues in the same light. The next step was putting recommendations in place for a sub-regional chapter that would form the basis for rules to be put into Variation 1 for the Land and Water Regional Plan. This was going to be a very difficult process because now we had to face up to the consequences of the decisions. We had to face our peers when we went back at night. Relationships were tested, and if my chairman job was about timelines, I wouldn't have lasted long. I would have been replaced many times. Just keeping everyone in the room some days was success. Not making any decisions, just actually keeping them in the room. But after asking and being granted for 2 extensions of time from Environment Canterbury Commissioners, we managed to agree on actions needed to be put in place to form our solutions package. Ooh, that was lucky. That is how we referred to our recommendations, because to each action the package needed to take place to achieve the desired result. We needed to remind ourselves also that this is all subject to hearing Commissioner's decision, which must be due out one day soon. Goals were obvious. There are obvious conflicts between these goals. If you look down the left-hand side on your version, this is the greatest challenge. When consulting with our community, this is the message we got. Basically, they wanted to have their cake and eat it too. We come back to the cake, where we started tonight. There were pathways that we've decided. Those pathways are lake rehabilitation, long-term proposition. Clearly all activities in the zone affect Te Waihora. But in and around the lake, projects are ongoing, with Whakahora Te Waihora at the forefront of these efforts, reflecting kaitiakitanga or guardianship over Te Waihora and its surrounds. There's been over 250,000 plants, trees and shrubs planted in just a couple of years, and yet this program is expected to last at least 2 generations or up to 35 years. Also, Whakahora Te Waihora is funding research into projects around lake openings, re-establishing reed beds and others. Farming is significantly better than good management practice. Everyone by 2017. Those leaching greater than 15 kgs of N in our zone, we've recommended improving beyond good management practice, and that's the sacrifice that Ken was talking about. That's going to hit you in the pocket, whether you like it or not. There's a program called Matrix for Good Management, or MGM. This is to establish recognised practice of farming sectors, a combined project that will assist in measuring environmental performance on our farms. For over-allocated water, there'll be consents in over-allocated areas. They will be renewed on actual data when they come up. Data from water meters, which we now have in place. There'll be the combining of groundwater and surface water takes. There'll be introduction of alpine water from those rivers. Now, unfortunately, with CPW, that'll help retire some of the groundwater use, but that's intensification. So therefore, we have another load to deal with. But is dilution a solution? I hope so, but perhaps in a certain manner. We're going to have revised minimum flows from 2025 on our rivers and streams. There'll be plantings up to 850 k's along streams, and there'll be targeted stream augmentation, or TSA as we talk about, or managed aquifer recharge, depending on where you do it. But and this is part of Ken's solution, I favour targeted stream augmentation, and that is where we're going to take some water off the bottom of the CPW scheme, or through our Selwyn District Council waterway scheme. We're going to place it near some of the lowland streams. We're going to try and help them flow a little bit stronger, and we're hoping that that water will also help the nutrient balance. We're going to manage the catchment, recognising its cultural importance to Ngā Tahu Te Waihora as a treasure, a tionga. Also understanding our wider community, not just Selwyn, but the people of Christchurch. We understand that they recreate and value our district immensely. It's not just ours, it's everybody's. So this is Selwyn-Waihora. It's worth taking time to reflect on its beauty. It's worthwhile. In this journey, we've consulted widely with our community. We've had focus groups with up to 100 people over a period of 18 months to 2 years, and we've gone and talked to them and told them what our plans are, and we've got feedback. They're the people who told us they want their cake and to eat it too. Not precisely, but that's the message. They want development control. They don't want nutrients in their rivers, but they want jobs for their children and their grandchildren. We've dealt with industry groups, environmental organisations, the wider community. We've held or attended countless public meetings. There's been a cast of hundreds, maybe thousands through our process. But at first, no one really wanted to know, but now everybody wants to know. We've had incredible support from our Environment Canterbury staff. I also thank Ian Whitehouse tonight for putting my slides together, because I'm not capable of that, but I will get there. Now this leads us to CPW. It was established in 2003. As I said earlier, consents were granted in 2010 though. That was before our zone committee was formed. Recognising that this irrigation scheme was consented before our zone committee was formed, we decided to embrace CPW as part of our solution. CPW is not only about bringing alpine water into our zone, but also economic development that is vital to developing our communities and sustaining our towns. As part of our district consultation and our strategic planning, we've had a thing called Selwyn 2031. We've gone to our community and asked them what they want. They want their children and their grandchildren to stay close. Families want to stay in the area, they want to work in our area, and they want to live in our area. So that's what this will promote. Unfortunately, we actually have to deal with the nutrients as well, and farm environmental plans will do that. CPW will irrigate approximately 60,000 hectares. With stage 1 almost completed, this long-awaited project is nearing reality. And stage 2 and 2 plus are in planning stage. This is a $5 million project. It's got 56 kilometres of head race, 5 metres deep by 30 metres wide at the top. Then gravity fed through 500 k's of pipe. The changes this project have gone through in the development are amazing. Channels to pipes, changed application methods, line channels, and water efficiency gains, which in turn reduce environmental effects. But the challenge remains managing those effects. We know that. This is achievable. I believe we'll see the adoption of advanced technology in farming, and the sector will manage this to meet lower nutrient levels. From a local government perspective, the zone committees have grown in relevance right throughout Canterbury, and importance as the reality that this is more than water became evident. These committees have become a vital cog in the role of local government. So my conclusion is a little different from Ken's. Yes, we are doing enough, but yes, we need to keep doing more. So, is the CMW working? CWMS, we're having trouble with that, Ken, tonight. Yes, it is. It's created an open forum for frank discussion. It's drawn people out of the corners. It's engaged them, but most importantly, there are 3 things it's about: people, relationships, and learning. And if we keep doing that, I believe we can have what Ken so wants. Maybe back to where we were, possibly not, but certainly improvement. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.